Welcome to the Strength for Life podcast, where smart strength training meets real life. We're Dr. Matt and Nicole Klingberg, founders of Village Fitness and Physical Therapy. Here, you'll learn what really works in the gym, at home, and for life. Today on the Strength for Life podcast, we're talking about one of our favorite exercises, the squat, and some of the biggest myths and misconceptions that we hear consistently from our clients. Things like squats are bad for your knees.
Or I'm going to hurt myself if I squat. Or my doctor told me I can never squat again. That's one of my absolute favorites, because I'm like, does that mean you can't get up and down out of a chair or
That's
in and out of
exactly
your
what it
car, in and out of your bed? Because you are squatting most of the time when you do those things. So
I also hear things like don't squat all the way down, never squat with a weight on your back. You'll compress your spine and ruin your discs, things like that. So we're going to get into all that, because I think the reality is if you fall for these myths or false beliefs, you're going to miss out on one of potentially the best exercises for building a strong, resilient body as you age.
yeah. And I think you're also going to get the outcome that you're trying to avoid, which is like weakness and loss of independence and just having a higher fall risk. If you avoid this exercise, which you need to do in everyday life, then you're just going to set yourself up for an increased risk for all those things.
Falls, which we've talked about before on this pod, falls are one of the leading causes of accidental death in Americans over the age of 65. I think they are the leading cause. And man, many people, if they fall, they end up going downhill fast. If some people die from the fall, they die, as a result of fall-related complications in the next year. We just heard that story time and again, specifically in the folks that are at retirement age or a little bit older. So you got to do what you can to avoid falling, and squats are research-backed as one of the best exercises to prevent falls. So let's get into some of these myths. Number one, squats are bad for your knees. This one refuses to die. But the research on properly performed squats to depth says otherwise. There was a 2013 study by Hartman and colleagues, and they found that deep squats strengthen not only the muscles surrounding the knees, but also the connective tissues like your ligaments, your LCL, MCL, ACL, PCL, all those really important ligaments within the body. And then also the tendons, your patellar tendon, your quadriceps tendon. Those are strengthened by squats, and they build a strong, resilient knee. And this is what people also don't understand, is that the lower you go in a squat, the more glute activation you get. One of the problems with not so deep squats is that your glutes don't fully engage, and you get a ton of quad activation without the glute activation. So it puts this very like anterior front stress on your knee, and you don't have the balance from the booty muscles to counteract that.
Yeah. And I think that, with any type of deep, squat, that the reality is like you do want to be able to get into that position. Like you want to be able to go through full range of motion in your knees. And it's just very rarely in life that you do a quarter squat.
Yes.
Like it's like when you go, one of my favorite analogies is like when you go to pick up a case of water at Costco, like you're picking it up off the pallet, off the ground, and lifting it. Like you have to be able to lift something, or you have to lift, a suitcase into the back of your car, or a stroller, or you have to get your kid or your grandkid out of the crib. Like you have to be able to flex your knee past 90 degrees. Otherwise, you're just going to live a very limiting life, and you'll be restricted from doing a lot of things that most people want to be able to do.
So I in high school, we would squat for football training, and we were not required to go all the way down. They technically were supposed to go down to full depth, but there was a guy who squatted 600 pounds in high school, and he went about a quarter of the way down. He went halfway to halfway, halfway to parallel. And that was, he could squat so much weight, but I've thought about it since. I'm like, man, he probably had no business having 600 pounds on his back. Like, load on the spine is a good thing. It makes the spine more resilient. It makes you stronger. But if you can't squat it down to parallel, you probably shouldn't have it on your back. That's just my 2 cents.
Well, it just puts you at such a greater risk of injury, and it's unnecessary because it just doesn't practically play out in your life.
Yeah.
Other than just bragging that you've squatted, which is funny because that's not really a girl thing. It tends to be guys because they like to come in and say once they've reached retirement age, oh, back in high school, I used to squat 400 or 500 pounds.
Yep.
And I always think to myself, they might have, but
Maybe.
most of the time I think you probably were doing quarter squats and you just didn't know
Judgy.
You probably just didn't
Dang.
know it at the time, which is, I mean, I think it's just like most people have been misinformed, or they don't have a coach that is properly trained in strength training. And so they don't know. And it's like, they're more concerned with the number than they are the actual movement and how that plays out in their life.
So another really interesting thing is this thing called the wrapping effect. And it's that when you squat deeper, the deeper you go, the more contact actually your femur, your leg bone gets with your tibia, your patella. Everything gets tighter and tighter and closer together and more stable. The deeper you go, the more stable your knee gets. And I know this to be true because I've torn my meniscus twice, and both times I tore it, my knee was fairly close to full extension. I was wrestling in my late teens, early 20s when both of my injuries happened. And I remember both of them. It's like my knee was pretty close to extension, and I was rotating, twisting, and somebody decided to take my knee the other way. What about for you? You tore your MCL skiing,
I tore my MCL
right?
skiing in high school. And
Were
same
you
thing.
pretty
I was like,
bent or just kind of, no, pretty straight?
Just like a little bit. Yeah. I probably
had
had
just like a little bit of bend. So when the knee's fully locked out, it's pretty stable.
It was just like a little bit of bend, probably like 30 degrees of flexion.
That's like the worst. If you watch a lot of the NFL guys that, or soccer kids, whatever, they tear their ACLs with a non-contact injury. The knee's actually almost fully locked out, and you'll watch it. It'll like bow in and goes into what's called valgus. So it dives in, and that's what stresses the ACL like crazy because there's not a lot of stability of the knee. So anyways, it's probably worse to do partial squats for your knee, if I had to say.
Yeah. When I had my injury, like I remember it, I didn't have nearly as much range of motion, and I really felt weak in that side. Like I remember feeling weak playing volleyball after that, skiing, like nothing felt great until I started consistently doing back squats.
Yeah.
And then it was like, I remember still having some pain, and there's still times now where it's like, it comes back a little bit, and now I've kind of figured out like why, but I think a lot of it is just, I wasn't strong enough. Like my quads, my hamstrings, my adductor, like weren't strong enough to stabilize my knee. And once they did get stronger and I started doing back squats, like a lot of my knee pain has gone away.
That's good. I don't have to give you as many massages.
It's true. But I still like massages.
Okay, fine. All right. Myth number 2, squats wreck your back. Now, most back injuries that I see don't happen when people are barbell back squatting. In fact, back injuries with squats are really rare.
Yeah. It's usually, I think sometimes it can be like if somebody pushed a little bit too much, like they might be really sore and then they go to do something else. The next day or a couple days after. It's just hard to say, like, is it that like, oh, you're really sore and you move the wrong way. But I would say most of the time it's like when it's something that people would say like, oh, this is silly or ridiculous that I hurt my back doing this. Like, it's like
the laundry basket.
It's the laundry basket. It's like I turned around in my car to grab something out of the back seat, or, and my favorite is like reaching back to give kids or grandkids something in the back seat because they're constantly asking you for things while you drive. But most of the time it's not when people are squatting. I would say it's in, everyday life where they do something and they tweak their back.
Yep.
So
the thing with a barbell back squat, especially if you're doing it right, the spine should be pretty rigid. And one of the reasons we have clients either hold their breath while they squat or exhale forcefully is because it creates a lot of intra-abdominal pressure, which stabilizes your spine. And we've actually recently started having clients experiment with using a lifting belt with squats. And it's not a back brace. Really important for people to understand that's not designed to brace your back. It's designed to activate your core even more than it would naturally because it gives you something to push against. You can generate a lot more force when you have an external thing resisting you and giving you feedback and a tactile cue. And that's what it does. It gives you this cue to brace your tummy muscles more, thus stabilizing your spine even better.
Yeah. And I would say that squats actually protect your back long term, especially if you do them, you're slowly progressing, because you are going to strengthen the muscles around your spine. And the reality is like you do need to bulletproof your back, and your back needs to be strong because it is going to have stresses on it when you're twisting or doing something that you don't expect. And if you aren't prepared for, your back experiencing load in a funky position or have enough strength, like you probably are going to tweak your back at some point.
Yep.
And so I think it's really important to strengthen your back. And in fact, like can you hurt your back squatting? Yes. Can you hurt your back doing anything? If it's too heavy, probably. Yeah. But I think it's like the back injuries that people do get from squats usually are too much too soon.
Yep.
They do things like 600-pound quarter squats. They warm up poorly. So they don't do enough warm up or not at all. And they just go like straight into it. Or they have bad technique, which it's really hard to tell your technique unless I guess you videoed and then you watched it later. Unless someone has really taught you how to do it and you've had someone watch you squat and give you feedback. So
I like it.
We both have tweaked our backs also. I think we've experienced lots of
I've not tweaked my back doing squats ever in my entire life.
Oh, you haven't? Okay.
Not once.
I have. And I
tweaked my back. One time I tweaked like my mid back.
Oh, yes.
I was doing.
Wasn't it picking up a kid or something?
No, I don't think so. The worst I ever did it, I was doing a dumbbell jumping jack. It was cold. It was the first thing in the morning. And I was like, I'm going to do this for my warm up like an idiot. And I just picked this dumbbell up. It was maybe 12 pounds. And I just was doing this like jumping jack. I pushed it over my head. The very first rep, like my back just seized up and I was on the ground. I couldn't get up for like 15 minutes.
I feel like I remember that.
Like, what am I going to do today?
You also tweaked your back doing something with a kid, like picking them up and fully at one point. It was like your thoracic spine.
I don't even remember that one though.
Yeah.
I remember the dumbbell one because I was in a lot of pain. But.
Yeah. When I first was lifting, I was doing box squats. So I had a heavy weight on my back and was going down to a box and I kind of tweaked my SIJ. And I think it was like probably not great range of motion. Like I had something that paused me. And I think that the weight was probably a little too heavy at that time. I've also tweaked my back sometime last year. Again, I was doing a lot of running and I had done heavy deadlifts the day before. And even though I warmed up, like it was kind of a chilly morning, so I don't think I warmed up enough. And then I think it was just the volume and the stress, like my back was already pretty sore from deadlifts. And I was like, oh, it'll be fine to do heavy squats today. And I went down on my first rep and thankfully it wasn't horrible. Like it was just like, ooh, like I kind of feel it. And I stopped and I think I still did squats the next week. I just backed off the weight and had Dr. Eric work on it a couple of times. And it really, like, it kind of resolved itself. And I kept moving and doing things. But it is a bummer when you're like, oh, I tweaked it. But again, it was like, if I look back, I'm like, I wasn't being as diligent as I should have been with my warm up, with just the overall training volume and like stress on my back muscles. And so it was probably too much too soon.
Yeah.
So
cool. Myth number 3, squats are only for young, fit people. So I think that the exact opposite is true, that the older we get, we probably have the most to gain from a movement like a squat because it fights one of the biggest consequences of aging, which is sarcopenia, or the age-related loss of muscle.
Yeah. And because squats recruit so many different muscle groups in your body, like it's going to give you so much strength if you are training it in a way where you're progressively overloading those muscles. They're getting stronger over time. And it's so interesting because it's like we have released a video before on YouTube where it was like talking about, why squats are like the best exercise for people that are older. And so many people are like, oh, it's like they have a lot of fear around doing squats. And so it's like, oh, well, that's only for younger people. Like older people shouldn't do that. And it's like, again, like I said earlier, it's like you are squatting whether you want to or not because of life. And it's like, do you want to be the person that can't get in and out of their car and needs a walker or needs assistance? Or do you want to be the person who can't take the stairs or can't travel to Europe with their kids and grandkids and friends because you don't have enough leg strength? And so I think it's like the older you get, the like more important squats become because it really is going to be protective of, like Matt said, the muscle mass and your type 2 muscle fibers, which tend to decrease as you age with sarcopenia.
Totally. All right. The final one, machines are safer than squats. So I'm assuming people are thinking leg press, leg extensions, maybe leg curls too, as the safer exercises. And so I would say those things are fine to have in your routine, but I think you need to understand what you're losing when you go from let's say a squat to a leg press, because that's probably the most similar. And I think the biggest thing you lose is that a squat demands balance, so that you don't fall over forward or backwards or left and right. It demands that your ankles, your foot, your knee, your hip, your core all work together simultaneously. When you do a leg press, for example, with your back supported, nothing in your upper body has to do anything. It's just your lower body. You don't really have to balance. You just kind of push, and it's almost like bowling with the guards up on the side of the bowling lane. It's like, yeah, my kids can throw some strikes with those up, but real life is with the guards down. And if you don't train like you're gonna live real life, you're gonna be disappointed when you get out there and your body doesn't do the things that you want it to be able to do.
Yeah, I think it's so true. It's like most people, it's like you get past, the age where you're training for maybe a specific sport, and you get into like, what are you training for? And it's like, most people are training for life. And so again, you squat multiple times a day, often in your life. And so if all you know how to do is like your legs are, strong when your back's pressed against something, like that just doesn't happen very often. I can't imagine. I don't think there's any instances in my like everyday life where a leg press is going to prepare me for everyday life. Now, is having stronger leg muscles a good thing and better than not doing anything? 100%. But it's like squats are so much more accessible. It requires so many more muscles to be activated. And it also just is going to help improve so many more things than just the leg press alone.
Yeah.
Or leg curl.
And so if you think about a leg extension or a leg curl, so a leg extension is where you're kicking your legs up. It's a quadriceps exercise. And the body's really not designed to use just our quadriceps or just our hamstrings in isolation. I think it's fine to do some of, if it's balanced out with, actual functional exercises like squats. But listen to this. So you do your leg extension, and you just contract your quadriceps. The quadriceps, not only do they extend the knee, they also pull it anteriorly or forward. So you are creating an abnormal stress at the knee joint. Hamstring curl, kind of the same thing. If you're just using your hamstring, you're pulling the knee backwards. It's creating a stress. The knee's very resilient. It'll adapt to that stress and get stronger. But I think if we're going to have this argument of like, oh, squats are dangerous compared to like a leg extension or a leg curl, it's like, well, I think the opposite might be true when it comes to our knees. I think those other exercises might actually pose more of a risk to our knee joint compared to, say, a squat.
Yeah, exactly. I think another myth that people sometimes believe is that they'll make, just any type of heavy lifting will make you bulky. And thankfully, I feel like this is one that through our training careers and as we've seen this industry shift, I think there's less of that. But I still think there is that like, oh, I don't want my legs or my leg muscles to get bulky. Yeah. And the reality is like, you need leg strength for everything you do in your life. And I think we kind of like take it for granted when you're younger, because you just have it naturally a little bit, and you're walking and moving, but then you get injured or something happens and you can't use your leg muscles, and you realize like, oh, this is so important for so many things I do in my life. And so I think it's like, it is good, like put some muscle on your legs, because it's going to be protective. It's going to help you live your life the way you want to live it. And if your legs are have more muscle in them, you'll be sturdier, and I think your life will be a lot more enjoyable, even if they are a little bit bigger, which I think is still hard to do. But I would say that that's another one that women would say they have a hard time with.
All right, let's talk about, we have 3 different levels across all 12 of the movements that we do in our program. We have 12 movement standards. The squat is one of them. We have 3 levels. The baseline level is the stepping stone. That's where we want all of our clients to achieve in ideally the first 12 weeks or so. Sometimes it takes 24 weeks. And then we have our milestone, which usually takes 1 to 2 years to achieve. And then the standard takes 2 to 5 years of really diligent, consistent strength training, often nutrition and lifestyle changes, and represents a really, really high level of fitness. So for men and women, the stepping stone is to be able to do 45 pounds 20% of your body weight, maxing at 45 pounds.
Yeah. I think if you can get to going to depth with a 45-pound bar on your back, and you have been doing that with good form for, 3 to 6 months, like that's a really good starting point. And I would say start light. Like if you've never done back squats, like don't just start with a bar on your back. We start people with body weight. They typically go down to a box and they work on their range of motion before they even get a bar on their back. Like they're maybe using dumbbells or maybe a 15-pound training bar. But we really make sure that people are hitting depth at their stepping stone. And this is like the first checkpoint. It's like, can you do this before we start to load the bar up? And then it puts you at an, increased risk of injury if your body's not ready to handle that kind of load and you don't have proper form. So it's really important that people learn how to brace properly, that they learn how to have a vertical bar path that puts you at a lot less risk of injuring yourself when you're doing squats. And it's just going to give you so much more practical strength in your everyday life. And then
I think once you've hit the stepping stone, I think you can confidently say to yourself, I'm not doing terrible. I'm kind of out of the real danger zone. And then as you work towards the milestone, once you hit the milestone, I think you can start to say, I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah. So the milestone for men is 90% of their body weight. For women, it's 50% of their body weight. And
with a max for men of 220 and a max for women of 135.
Yeah. And the reason why we put that in is because we want these to be realistic. We don't want people to put too much load on their backs before they're ready. And then we also age adjust our standards. So
not the stepping stone milestone though.
Not the stepping stone milestone. You're right. Yeah.
Just the standard, right?
Yeah. Just the standard. Yeah. Yeah. So once we get to the standard, we can chat about that. But but this one, I would say and why he said, anywhere from 6 months to probably 3 years for a lot of people. This could be a much wider range depending on your consistency, which we've talked a lot about.
And if you're training 2 versus 3 days a week.
If you're training 2 versus 3, like if you're not doing squats every week, like it's going to take a lot longer to hit your milestone. It also depends on your body weight. Like if your body weight's less, I think it's a little bit easier to hit this one sooner. And then I think it also just depends on if you're consistently doing this and you're not taking big gaps off outside of rest weeks, then most likely, if you're consistent going up anywhere from 3 to 5 pounds a week, like you should hit your milestone in
for sure
1 to 3 years. The standard has a lot bigger variability. And honestly, I think out of all of our 12 movement standards, like this one is the hardest. And our data shows that too. We've been collecting data since we started Benchmark Week, I want to say like 4 or 5 years ago. And so essentially we started Benchmark Week because we wanted a way to test people. And so if you haven't heard what Benchmark Week is, it's essentially at the end of our 12 weeks of training, the last week, we let people test one set of 5 for squats and see like what's the max they can get. So it's not a 1 rep max. So it's a little bit safer. It's easier to warm up. It's more similar to how our training is. And we see how much weight they can do. And so again, these are all things that we test every 12 weeks for our clients. And for men, the standard is 125% of their body weight with a max of 295. And then for women, the standard is 100% of their body weight with a max of 205. And this again is age adjusted. So for every year you're above 55, we decrease it by 1%. And then every year you're below 55, we increase it. So it's a little bit harder for people that are younger than 55. So, and I would say this one, again, this is probably the hardest one to hit, but it also has the highest reward. As far as if we look at our big 3 and percentages.
We had 12 people in last quarter Q4 that hit the standard for squats.
Yeah. Yeah. So not that many people have hit their squat standard. And, there's even a lot of people who are like, I'm so close, like maybe I can get the weight, but I'm just like not quite at depth. And depth is probably the thing that limits people the most from doing this, because it is really challenging to that last 10 degrees of range of motion is like the most challenging part of the squat. And so we found that's one of our criteria that we test. And it's really important because that's like what Matt said earlier, is when you get a lot of the glute activation. So anything else you want to add to people hitting their standard?
No, I think it's intentionally the most difficult because it's like we just really want people to have a big reserve of muscle to draw on. The one thing we did want to hit on was the percent reduction. So every year you are older than 55. Did you already say this?
I said this, yeah.
Just now?
Yeah.
Okay, I was sorry. I was looking up the
You
standard.
were looking
thing.
at how many people hit the standard, yeah.
Yep. Uh-huh. All right. Well, I think we've covered enough the squat. You got to go get our kids from school.
I do. Yeah.
So let's wrap this podcast up. So keep squatting, my friends. Don't prescribe to the myths. And I was going to make a joke about Sasquatch, but Sasquatch,
Oh, okay.
you know, the myth of Sasquatch. You've heard of that?
No.
No? Giant
haven't.
Sasquatch? No?
No.
Okay. Well, that's it for the Strength for Life podcast today. We'll catch you next time. For now, I'm Dr. Matt.
I'm Nicole Klingler.
Bye-bye.
Keep squatting.